Hello and welcome to the Inbetween podcast. I'm your host, Joe Scott. I'm joined here by Tony. Turns at our tea. This week we're going to be talking about the Switch 2 being real. We're going to be talking about how you're going to have to start saving now because the 5090 is going to cost you.
Oh yeah,
And CRT shader emulation is really cool and it will make you think it's the real deal.
finally useful AI and something that close to my heart, I suppose, with all the Blu-rays I've got.
Do you want to allude to what you're talking about?
No, you have to wait. You
Oh,
have to wait for
okay.
the rest of the
Right.
video. That's the tease.
So Tony, we had the Game of the Year podcast. I think it was about a week
Yes.
ago, but it was the podcast from 2
Yeah.
weeks ago because we delayed it a bit. Sorry if I sound a bit weird. I've been a bit sick recently, and I might have to mute to cough potentially, but we will go through it. So I actually finished SpongeBob Rehydrated on my Steam Deck. I've pretty much only played it on my Steam Deck, and I kept playing it in like 20, 30-minute bursts when I was out and about, waiting in the car and sitting around waiting for stuff. And I was like, I think I'm like at the end of the game, and I was like, why don't I just finish it? So I did. So I finished SpongeBob. I played
Completely.
Locator, which is a GeoGuessr-inspired detective puzzle game that you saw me stream to you on Discord.
Yes.
And then not games. I watched a film called Perfect Blue. I will talk about this with you, Tony, and because I know sometimes I ask you to pick stuff and then I ignore you and I talk about everything.
Yeah.
But I need to talk about Perfect Blue one time and then hopefully never
Okay.
talk about it again. Um,
Okay. I mean, I'm done talking about it now.
yeah, I'll go through the list, but
Yeah.
I went into this film completely blind, and I think that was a massive mistake.
Oh right. Okay.
I'll get into why. Um, I also watched My Hero Academia because after watching Perfect Blue, I said I need to watch like 10 Marvel movies to get that out of my head, and then I was like, well, what's the anime equivalent of Marvel movie? It's My Hero Academia. It's very easy to
Oh,
watch.
true.
I watched
True.
like two
Yeah.
seasons of it and the movie. I've watched season 2 of Squid Game, which essentially is just could be going through these. It essentially is just half of a season. They've clearly split them up. They clearly split up Squid Game season 2 into two parts, but they were like, no, we'll just call it Squid Game season 2 so more people watch it. Like they did not tell you going in it was split up. So because season 3 is already going to be out this year, I think. So they've clearly just
Just
petitioned it up.
yeah. It seems odd not to have a satisfying conclusion on that one.
I've also watched the first episode of the new series of Severance. Severance is a really fucking good show. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like
I've
the
not seen it,
one.
but I've heard of it.
It's like the one thing worth watching on Apple TV, in like
Oh,
shows.
okay. All right.
Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. I've watched half of this film. I've actually not seen the second half.
Half.
Yeah, I was watching
Okay.
it on.
I've not
I,
seen it yet.
I was watching it on Christmas Day, but then my niece wanted to run around, and I was like, "Well, I've got to stop watching the film and deal with her." And then I did before she came around. I managed to watch the whole of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish on Christmas Day, and then I've also been watching Mashal, Magic and Muscles, which I actually think is quite a funny show. It's basically what if Harry Potter, there was a person who didn't have magic, but he just solved all his problems by getting super jacked instead. It's a it's a very funny
Okay.
show. And then I've also watched the second Alien versus Predator film, Aliens versus Predator Requiem. Um, were you watching this when I was
Uh,
watch partying it the
I
other
was kind
day?
of half watching it, but I was in the call at the time.
Okay. So is there anything in particular you want to know about, or should I just start talking
No,
about
it's just
Perfect Blue?
that's just that's a perfect blue. That's the most. That's yeah. I'm intrigued to know what the hell happened.
Okay, so here's the backstory. Uh, it's I was listening to a podcast. It's Christmas evening, so I've just had Christmas Day,
Okay.
and I'm
Yeah.
listening to a podcast before bed, and it's the No Clip podcast. And Denny O'Dwyer, he's not a big fan of like anime stuff usually on the stuff, but there's a couple of other guys who are, and one of them, Jesse Garash, is like, he's like, oh, maybe you'll get into anime stuff one day. Maybe you'll be really into like Satoshi Kon films and you'll watch like Perfect Blue. And I said, oh, what's Perfect Blue?
What?
Let me look up
Yeah.
absolutely nothing about this and watch this film. So I put this on Christmas night, like literally like an hour and a half before I go to bed. And I'm watching it. And Tony, I'm not kidding you. I felt like I was going to physically throw up watching this film. It is a
Oh, okay.
challenging film to watch. The only film that I've watched that I can compare this to is Uncut Gems, where it's like this.
Okay.
It's like the Safdie brother movie where you're watching it and you're like, this is a fucking bad time. Like it makes you feel like dread and uneasy watching it the entire time. And yet that film, like the whole time I was rooting for it to end, and the whole time watching this, I was like, I am rooting for this film to end because it's making me feel so unwell. Like but the thing is, it's not a bad movie,
Yeah.
and it's not probably
So
not
you weren't prepared for it.
no, and probably not for the reasons you're thinking. I mean,
Okay.
there are parts of the film where I would say it does kind of get borderline experimental. It's very like avant-garde. It is part like drama, psychological horror. Like, I'll tell you the basic plot. It's basically
Okay.
there's this woman who is in a idol group in Japan. Immediately, this film is very dated because there's a scene near the beginning where somebody's explaining the concept of using the internet and a computer to someone, and they're just like, "What the fuck is this?" Because this came out in in 1998.
Okay.
I believe originally it was because I think it's based on a book, and originally was supposed to be a live action film, and then they ran out of money and they were like, okay, let's make an animation instead, like a sort of more of a cheaper animation.
Right.
But essentially, it's about this woman who's in a girl group, and she decides to be a member. She wants to stop being a member of this girl group and focus on being an actress, basically, because she wants to change her image, right? But there's a fan of hers who is like deeply obsessed with her and starts stalking her. Yeah, but then like throughout the film, not only does it's about like this constant feeling of someone's watching her, but she starts talking to like a alternate version of herself who is the pop idol, and then like it gets like really like psychological, this film. But not only that, is one of the most uncomfortable scenes I've seen in a film before is there is a trigger warning. There is a rape scene in this film, and they just hold on it, and it is very uncomfortable to watch.
Okay.
But it's also part of the TV show that she's filming. And like halfway through it, they're just like, "Oh, hold! We've got to, stop filming this scene and get it from different." And they just hold on it, and it's just like, I'm just like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, you have to understand the state of mind. I'm like literally in Christmas mode, and then I go in and I start watching this film, and I'm just like, I am going to throw up. This is so fucking intense, but it's not just like. Without going into like spoilers about the film, like there's this whole element of you also don't. Is it a TV show? The fan starts like hurting people and like muttering. It's like, is the fan doing this? It's very much that sort of thing where you're constantly asking questions. Like,
yeah,
it reminds like I watched American Psycho ages ago, and throughout that film, American Psycho, because like for some reason people watch American Psycho and they go, "Oh, I love this guy, I idolize him," and I'm just like, "What the people on TikTok or whatever." Patrick Bateman. But like actually watching that film rather than clips, like the whole time you're just like you start to feel uneasy. It's like, and the whole time he just keeps talking about returning these tapes. And I'm like, why the fuck does he keep going on about? He's like, I gotta really return these tapes, and you're just like, you're just never sure what's happening. But the thing with this film is, as many questions as it gives you, it's like it does give you like a straightforward plot at the same time. It has like a start, a finish, and end, and it goes, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened. But it leaves these like hints to go, but did something else happen? And then at the end it goes, okay, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened, and then it goes, wink, and then it ends, and you're just like, what the fuck was that?
Okay.
Apparently, Satoshi Kon considered to be like a really great director, and he's made a lot of films similarish to this, and I could understand why people would be like into this stuff, but man, I was not ready for this. I mean,
Yeah.
this is like diving into the deep end of the pool on your first lesson.
What? Yeah. Well, it's like I feel like you jumped into like try to cross the channel. That's your first lesson, and even like if you're a good swimmer, you just like train and prepare for it.
But yeah, I mean,
It sounds interesting, but I feel like the right state of mind to be.
I think it was like it's a combination of being like a really hot, like literally, you will be like, I want to turn this off. I don't want to keep watching it. Like you will feel uneasy
hard
watching
subjects.
it.
Yeah.
There's this constant feeling of like, because it makes you feel like you are being watched, or you're being pulled into this psychosis. You're being pulled into this like alternate world, and it's just I can't describe it in words. The feeling of watching this film, and part of me goes, I'm so glad it's over, and the other part of me goes, that was one of the most uniquest experiences I've had watching a film. So I could understand why people would want to experience more of that. It like if I had to compare this to a game, Tony, I'm gonna say this is the Kane and Lynch 2 of fucking like it's like Kane and Lynch 2 is like a bad fucking time to play, but it's like there's just no game like Kane and Lynch 2, is there? It's just something. It's just you can't look away. It's grotesque. There's weird censorship for no reason. Like it makes you feel uneasy. It makes you feel sick. But there's just nothing like it. I don't know. It's a film that I would recommend to no one, but also think that it's quite a good film. I don't know how to describe this film. Like I don't know who's ready for this film, because it wasn't me.
Well, it wasn't you on Christmas evening.
Well, I'm trying to think if I had the ability to go back in time and unwatch this film, would I? And I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I've got a bad question. If you could change when you watched it, do you think that'd make a difference in terms of your readiness?
Probably, yeah.
Like if you were able to prepare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as exploring.
Oh, so here's another thing, Tony.
Because
I was like frantically Googling and looking stuff after watching this, because I was like, just show like what the fuck. Apparently, this is I've never seen it, but Black Swan bought the rights to this film so they could use a similar story. I don't know if you know. Yeah, so I don't know anything about Black Swan, but
I've not watched Black Swan, but it's on my list. Based
on fucking watching Perfect Blue, you will have a bad fucking time watching Black Swan. So, because I think I think they changed some stuff, and that maybe they go their own direction with it. But they specifically bought the rights to this story to be like, we're going to do something that kind of
it's so
tiptoes on this.
It's so similar. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'd never heard of this before.
I'd also never heard of it, which is why, you know me, I like to go in things completely blind and be like, okay, fuck it, let's just experience it. Yeah. And yeah, I experienced it. Yeah, it's a sort of film where you could just write essays about, like, there's very interesting characters in this film, but I don't know if I ever want to think about them again. Um,
Right, right.
um, it's also like some of the trailers for this. You look at them and it's like it because like at the start of the film you have like these knockoff Power Rangers that just shows her like in the girl band. I think it's called Cham or something, and it's just like, oh, this looks like a nice. Like I could, I there was a film I watched, um, called, or at least I watched half of it, and I couldn't watch the other half of it that I had to watch for film studies class, and it was like, it's a film called Audition, which is another Japanese film, and the first half of the film is a rom com, and the second half of the film is a horror film, and it is one of the most wild like flips of complete 180 change that you can experience in a film, and it's just all I remember about this film is there's just this bag that moves, and I'm just like, why is the bag moving? What's in the bag? And it's just, I literally was like, I can't watch this. Like this was like 10 years ago now, and I had to go to my teacher and be like, can I watch a different film? Because this film is freaking me the fuck out. Like this is a bad time. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like I think. Do you watch much challenging cinema? The only film I can think of is like Uncut Gems, like a Safdie brother film, where you're just like, oh my god.
Um.
I went on Reddit and I was looking because I was like, did anyone else feel similar to me? Like they were really uneasy, like they felt they were going to be sick. And somebody said, yeah, today I decided to watch Perfect Blue and Zone of Interest. I don't feel good. And I'm like, why the fuck would you watch this and Zone? If you don't know, Zone of Interest is a film about a family that lives next to Auschwitz. And I'm just like, you are just
Oh, right. Yeah.
asking for a bad time by watching, this and that.
Yeah. I gave you phases like one to like. It's been a while since I've done this, but like look like explore like these sort of things, like these sort of topics. I think it is worth almost seeing someone else's perspective and like and trying to like display that in some sort of film multimedia format.
Mm,
Because like because I think I've watched a couple of like Auschwitz like documentary things like from the perspectives of like almost like as if like I don't know what you'd call it, but like just like someone had a camcorder with them, like kind of that pretend sort of way of recording it. And it's like I think there's a lot of perspectives like I wouldn't have had if I had not watched those sort of things. So I do go through phases of like wanting to experience those sorts of things. I
mm,
don't normally go for like psychological stuff, but like I'm always interested when I hear like the concepts. Like it is, I find them interesting.
yeah. But yeah, it's one of those films where I come away and I just keep thinking about things that happen in terms of like,
Yeah,
it's like a puzzle almost. I don't know.
yeah.
It makes you think.
I I think you I kind of what you mean because like you kind of like it's in my head is like I kind of like you're trying to put stuff together to like make it almost feel better. So you're trying to puzzle piece of things to make you feel better about what happened. At least that's how I kind of
Well, not only that is
try and deal with it.
there's almost like three potential different plots that I can think of off the top of my
So
head
in
if
this
you,
guy,
if you
okay.
if you interpret things that
So
happen
you're trying,
differently.
yes, you're trying to, okay. So you're literally also trying to like, yeah, which one is the most plausible, or if this happened, what
Yeah.
else is true?
Because there's she's on a TV show and there's just stuff that happens on the TV show that starts like mirroring her life, and it's just like, what is going on? Like, I don't want to go too in depth because like I don't want to just word for word talk about what happens in the film, but it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
there is a lot of room for interpretation in this film, and um, I could understand why people liked Satoshi Kon films. Um, because how many films did he make? I don't know if he's still alive. Let me look it up. He died at age 45 in 2010.
What?
Yeah,
Okay. Pretty
because
young.
I looked at something because he did another film, um, Paprika. That looked kind of that was one. I think that was his last film he did potentially because it's in like 2006. Um, but so apparently, I'm looking at Paprika review. Warning, if you experience sexual trauma, you should avoid this one because there is a scene that may trigger PTSD. Okay. So apparently this is, you're going into like Satoshi Kon films expecting to have a bad time. Apparently Perfect Blue is potentially the worst one though, in terms of like,
Right.
not in terms of his worst work, but like it has some of the heaviest scenes in terms of what happens.
Yeah.
But anyway, I blindly watched a Satoshi Kon film, challenging cinema, and I live to potentially regret it. I don't know how I think when you come away from a game or a film or any piece of media and you don't know how you feel about it, I think that is at least something interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, was there anything else you wanted to hear about? I think I've been over it. My Hero Academia,
no.
superhero anime. It's pretty good. It's pretty easy to watch. It's not, super good cinema. Severance is still really good. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is actually a really good film. I quite enjoyed that one. I've watched the first season of Mashal. It's quite funny. And then Alien vs. Predator. Requiem is pretty trash, but it's also better than the first one because it's not the Resident Evil guy. With this film, I think they literally got like two brothers who do special effects to direct it, and like the special effects look good, but it's like it's just not a great like. This film compared to the first Alien vs. Predator actually has characters and has plot and events that happen, but it's just not a particularly interesting film.
Right.
Speaking of unspeakable horrors, Junji Ito is coming to Dead by Daylight through a series of cosmetics that are. So you have the spirit as Tommy. There's a bunch of Junji Ito inspired works that are going to be basically. There's no killer or survivor that's based on it, but it's just like existing characters are now getting costumes based on his work, which I think they look pretty cool. There's no Uzumaki characters, so I cannot tell you about most of these because I've only seen Uzumaki. I found it really funny. I read the Reddit thread on this, and the top comment was, "Oh man, it's a shame they only ever made one episode of that Uzumaki series." And I'm like, "Yep, it's a shame they only ever made one episode of that Uzumaki series." Just pretend it's not real, Also, I have been playing this as well. The Fantastic Four joining Marvel Rivals. There's a brand new season of Marvel Rivals out, and they've released The Invisible Woman and Mr. Fantastic, as well as releasing a new map and a new deathmatch match, which is like Doctor Strange's Sanctimonium with all of
Sanctum
his
Sanctorum.
Sanctum. Well, you know the deep lore.
Yeah. Well, I know the Lego set name. Wait, so is this because there are only two Fantastics in this? Is that what you're saying?
There's Mr. Fantastic, the Invisible Woman, and then so they're basically splitting the season in half, where the first half is those two, and then the Thing and the Human Torch are coming later.
Right. Okay.
What I think is, other than the Invisible Woman being like absolutely destroying the internet with her character design.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Fantastic, like she's a pretty interesting support, pretty good character. My only issue with her, she looks very close to Cloak and Dagger. So when she's in cloak form, so when she's in dagger form, yeah, Cloak must be the guy with the cloak, right? So when she's in dagger form, she is. They're both like kind of similar silhouetted blonde women, and it can be like I've literally had a game where I was like, oh my god, Cloak and Dagger's over there, and I'm like, wait a minute, no, that's the Invisible Woman. So like that is a bit hard to read sometimes. Then Mr. Fantastic, I think is quite interesting because he's a DPS, but he's built more like a tank, and we don't have many like the only other characters kind of like that is Wolverine, where they've also kind of pushed him towards this direction of like they gave him more health and they were like, okay, we'll make him more of like a tank anti-tank. and then Mr. Fantastic is also like a DPS tank. It seems like with this game, they're very much going for the approach of we're not going to force people into roles. We're going to make DPSs that are tanky. We're going to make supports that deal damage. We're going to make tanks that are more like you have like your Thors and your who else is like Venom's kind of like this, where like or Captain America and Thor are more like DPS tanks, where they're better like off tanks than they are just like solo tanks. But yeah, been pretty fun. I'm excited to play the rest of the Fantastic. I was literally playing before we started recording this podcast. So.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to hear his clobbering time. That's the bit I'm waiting for.
Someone in the trailer pointed out that love the comments have already been devolved into Sue's Bakery, or Dracula's about to get his legs broken for not paying back. Sue's Bakery, yeah. People pointed out that like Mr. Fantastic is like he's like on a computer. They're basically all. He's like stretching around. Sue's like raising a shield to protect people. The Human Torch is like flying off into the sky and putting the Fantastic Four logo on, and then the Thing is just putting a bus back in its place, and everyone's just like, why? He just picks up a bus and he just puts it down over there and he goes, "That's my job done."
I mean, he looks like he's having a good time.
Also, another thing is Mr. Fantastic has the ability to, like, he basically gets, like, super wide, and then he can, like, absorb abilities and shoot them back at you. And everyone's been doing the meme with Mr. Like, the wide meme, so he's like, do.
Oh, right, yeah, the
I'll
wide
see if I can find it. Wide Mr. Fantastic. Here's his character. I'll see if I can find the clip. Here it is. Wide Mr. Fantastic. You absorb an ability and you shoot it back. And then he just basically starts clobbering the ground with his hands. Oh yeah, like you have like an inflatable meter, and then the more like abilities you use, you could go into like your Giga Chad form and you're just like super strong.
It's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, he's a really interesting character. That's the thing I say. Like people assume like Marvel Rivals is just an Overwatch clone, but it's actually really got interesting character design and stuff in it.
Yeah.
Like it's genuinely a very good game. But yeah. Next up we have speaking of Wallace and Gromit earlier, Wallace and Gromit is coming to Power Wash Simulator as a DLC. There is no release date on this at the moment, but I will be playing this. I love Wallace and Gromit, so cool to see that.
Is the music going to be in it though?
Probably.
That's my question.
You can power wash while on a moving train. People
Wait,
were.
You look like a robot. Hold on. You look like a robot. That's a person, right?
I guess that in the because usually they give you skins based on the scenario, and like in SpongeBob, you're like a SpongeBob character. I'm guessing in this one,
when you're Mechanicus.
Yeah, in this one, you are a robot created by Wallace in order to clean the house.
Okay.
Because people were saying like, oh, you know, why does Wallace inventions always go wrong, and then I guess you guys have to come in and clean it up? And it's like Wallace's inventions almost never go wrong. They more so get hacked and turned evil by other people. Like literally in the film,
or misused.
Literally in the film, he builds this gnome to cut up people's garden in the new film, and then he has a setting on it that's like evil mode, and then it gets hacked into and turned into evil mode sort of thing. Because Wallace, for some reason, was like, "Oh, I'll just put an evil mode in there just in case,"
like,
you know.
It's like the wrong trousers. It's like he didn't make it to make heights easier. It just got used by the Penguin to do that. Yeah,
his inventions are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, and then next up we have local multiplayer is coming to Fortnite Festival, which I 100% completely forgot existed. Do you remember us talking about Epic acquiring Harmonix, the creators of Guitar Hero and Rock Band? So
No.
okay, well they basically have made a game mode in Fortnite called, or like the Fortnite, whatever the fuck Fortnite is now, like the um the game
Fortnite launcher?
launcher. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a game mode called Fortnite Festival, and they've now have the ability for local multiplayer. So you can just invite friends round with a couple of guitars, and you can essentially just play Guitar Hero through Fortnite now, which is really cool to see. Because I was looking it up, um, what kind of controller would you need? So apparently there you can buy new controllers that are compatible. Like Rift Master does some, but they're quite expensive. And another thing is, if you're playing on an Xbox, you specifically need a controller that is Xbox approved. Otherwise, you can't use it because they stopped people using modded controllers this way. So you have to get like an approved controller. If you're on PC or PlayStation or whatever, apparently one of the best controllers are just Wii controllers that are used with a retro adapter. So there's this one from Retro Cult Mods which converts a Wii Guitar Hero controller um, into a USB controller, and that will be accepted by stuff like Fortnite Festival. I believe there's also stuff like Clone Hero is a popular third-party tool for PC that people like to use. Then next up we have Little Gator Game is getting a game-sized DLC called The Dark, which is interesting. I get people were saying it was like a riff on Breath of the Wild, or is it Tears of the Kingdoms, like dark area underneath the map? I don't know how much you know about that game, but yeah.
No,
Like
I
Little
don't know
Gator
about
Game
that.
is very much riffing on the Zelda game itself, and then to make a DLC that's sort of riffing on the sequels of Breath of the Wild as well is quite interesting. I like this game. It was like short and sweet. It is very much, one of those casual, cozy games. It's not like a insane like story game. It's not an insane like, oh, it's got great platform mechanics. It's just like, if you want to just chill and relax and just walk around and do quests, it's a sort of a good game for that. But there's a DLC for that. Speaking of games I really enjoyed Everhood, which was, I think it was in 2021 potentially. I played this is when it came out. I don't know if you remember this, but it is a rhythm RPG, and it seems like they are making a brand new game, Everhood 2. So this one seems to be
just a straight up sequel.
Yeah, a straight up sequel. This one seems to be a lot more. Everhood 1 was very much more about just dodging stuff. Also, the slime woman. There'll be art for it immediately.
Yeah.
This one seems to be more like you can upgrade. You're using weapons, and it's more like a standard RPG where it's like you can upgrade your weapons, you can change out equipment, and it seems like there's a lot more going on in this game. It feels like there's more. Like I feel like Everhood 1 was very straightforward, and this one seems to be kind of amping it up and just like. I know there's going to be some crazy shit going on based on like the gnome fights and the incinerator and stuff like that. And it's going to start to become really hard to look at your screen while you're trying to dodge these projectiles and take down the bosses. I'm hoping there's some really cool music. We know that there will be a custom battle editor support coming as well, so you'll immediately be able to make custom maps for the game, which is really, really cool to see. Then next up we have a remake. We have, so here's the store page. It's coming the 4th of March 2025. So it's coming out this year. The House of the Dead 2 is getting a remake by Forever Entertainment. So I played the original House of the Dead remake that came out in 2022. We did a spotlight on it. I was watching it before the podcast. One of the big thing about the first game is the first remake, because I never played the original House of the Dead other than, in an arcade when I was waiting at the cinema. Because in the UK, we didn't have like big arcades. It was, at least for me, my local cinema had a couple of arcade cabinets in it while you waited for a film.
Arcades, I think, were gone or dying by that point. I think they were from a previous era more.
You would have like a racing game with like a bike or a car. You would have Time Splitters. You would have a House of the Dead, and then it would be like air hockey, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this is coming out spring 2025. So the first House of the Dead, I thought it was okay-ish. The remaster they did, it didn't have light gun or VR support, which I thought was like a no-brainer for this game because it's so hard to
Yes.
emulate that actual, arcade light gun gameplay. It was mouse and keyboard only, I believe. Which I was like, well, that's kind of strange. Like I thought, like adding light gun support for peripherals may be hot, but like a VR mode where, because not everyone's going to own a light gun stuff, but if you just had it as like literally a static screen inside a VR environment and people could use their VR controllers as a gun, I think that would work really well. And it probably
Yep.
wouldn't. If it is a Unreal Engine game, then it actually you could do it yourself potentially with UE VR, the Prey Dog mod. But we'll have to wait and see if this one has VR support or not. I mean, it wasn't mentioned in the trailer whether it will or not. I played this with mouse and keyboard. I thought it was fine. Also, the first game had some performance issues because Forever Entertainment, I don't know, they remastered House of the Dead. They remastered Panzer Dragoon, which I think was also bundled with this game, which is another like early Japanese title. That's I think it's kind of Star Foxy. You're kind of like riding on a dragon or something like that. I own it, but I haven't played it, and I've never played the original. But these guys just did the Donkey Kong HD remake for the Switch for Nintendo, and it's okay. I would say there's definitely a lot better remasters for the Switch. Like they kind of did the bare minimum ish on that one, but I think that shows that potentially Nintendo cracked them into shape, or they're getting a bit better at doing these. Hopefully, they're just getting better at doing these remasters. I don't have the utmost hope that this is going to be, something that has a lot of these features that you would want from a House of the Dead remake. But I might check it out if it goes on sale potentially.
I feel like something's better than nothing, but it'd be nice if it had more
Now,
features.
I've yet to play a fighting game yet, Tony. And at the start of this year, I was talking about the fighting games I wanted to play. And the one I said I wanted to play the most was Street Fighter 6. And I'm just going to show you a trailer now. And let's make sure it's in 4K. You immediately understand why I want to play Street Fighter 6.
I know the characters.
Yeah, it's Mei from... Is it Fatal Fury is the game she's from? I actually do not know. I mean, this character looks sick.
I don't know.
Immediately they have her fighting Chun-Li. I mean, obviously, this is what the people want to see. We have a comment here from certain Diversion 33 on Reddit said, I always remember Sakurai laughing while explaining why they picked Terry for Smash over her, and his reason was, it's a game for good boys and girls. Which is why, Terry's in Smash, but May's not in Smash, or Maya, however you pronounce it. But I could see why they would choose Terry over this woman for Smash Brothers. But she's in Street Fighter. So we can have Chun-Li, we can have Cammy, we can have... Is Yuri's another character, I believe, that people like? But yeah.
So.
I think there's a blonde... I can't remember her name. I'll be honest. I'll play Street Fighter 6 and I'll report back with all the characters worth playing. Your Cammys, your Mays, your Yuris, And I'll tell you which is the good ones, Let's have a look. Then we have... Oh, we got releases now, Tony. Desktop Mate has released a DLC called the Hatsune Miku DLC. So Desktop Mate is a program that lets you put a little virtual friend that like a computer, like a bonsai buddy on your screen. And they've just done this DLC.
An anime character.
Yeah, but you can now put Hatsune Miku on your screen. I've been slowly learning about Vocaloid stuff because I was looking into rhythm games, and there was this Hatsune Miku. I was looking into Sega games actually, and I was like, "There's a Hatsune." Hatsune Miku is often seen like hand in hand with Sega stuff because Sega almost always does Hatsune Miku stuff. If you don't know what Hatsune Miku is, it's essentially like one of the first ever computer generated singers. It's using a computer to generate a real voice and then making songs completely from electronics. I haven't. Have you ever listened to any Vocaloid music? I really haven't listened to that much
I've not
Vocaloid
really.
music.
I've heard like bits and pieces, but only like people like
But
talk
I
about
thought it
them.
would be because people seem to really like the Hatsumiki Vocaloid rhythm game, and I've been
Yeah,
really getting into rhythm games. I was like, is it worth me trying to play like a Vocaloid rhythm game if I've never listened to Vocaloid music? But I know like Hatsune Miku is really fucking popular, and also I don't know if you know this, Hatsune Miku has literally just been added to Fortnite, which
what?
Fortnite has become the epicenter of culture now. You can have like
Yeah,
Hatsune Miku versus Peter from Family Guy versus fucking
Keanu Reeves.
Naruto or Keanu Reeves or Master Chief, or it's just a giant billboard of IPs now, or versus Darth Vader or
Oh
whatever
yeah.
you can think of. But yeah, what do you think of Desktop Mate? Obviously, it's not it's free, and then I think the
I d-
Hatsune Miku DLC is the one that
yeah,
costs like
sure. I don't.
£16.
What is it? I don't understand why. Like, how does that work? Like, do you move it? Like, I don't get it. Like, does it just make
I think it's like the
sounds
concept
and
of a virtual
noises?
desktop, right? Where you just have something on your desktop to look at and
Okay, so
interact
it's
with.
just, but specifically with a character that more interactable
Well,
than what?
I think it can like interact with like your file windows and stuff like that.
Right, right.
There's a video
I think I
here.
just need to see. Yeah, I need to see a demo of it. It's just like what sort of thing
Like if you
can it
look
actually
here,
do?
there's a video on the main non DLC store page showing
Yeah,
how it would work.
so you can plot them on the top of a window,
Hmm.
but they just get in the way though.
Depends what you're doing. Have you seen the desktop mate thing where it's like a goose that like tries to actively pick up your mouse and like move it away from you?
I
Have you not seen
I,
that?
well, I've seen a meme of it, but I didn't know is it a real thing that you
It's
can
a real
install.
thing. It's on itch.io.
Okay, right. Okay.
I saw like the guy. I think it's Kit Boga, the guy who like tries to waste scammers' time as much as possible. And scammers will like remote into his PC and I'll have this thing going. And the scammer's trying to do something, and the duck just comes along and picks up the mouse and walks away. But yeah, if you want to fuck up your computer, like this is funny, right? Like you're gonna have like a goose that
Yeah.
just tries to annoy you as much as possible. This is this is the market, you know. Instead, you're gonna have like an oh my god. I think you know who the market for this, other than Idol fans and J-pop fans and Vocaloid fans, is it's probably a good thing for streamers. Like I feel like if you're watching a stream and there's just
Oh,
like a
sure.
Hatsune Miku in the
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, like some people who play VR chat. There's these things called mutes, which are essentially like players who don't talk, and people collect mutes. So they'll have like specifically these mutes that they'll like go into rooms and interact with, and then they'll be like waving at the camera and stuff like that. And sometimes people will have their mutes on the screen while they're doing other things. So there's like literally people
Okay.
emulating this stuff, and it's like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah.
you could have like a robot pretend to be an anime girl instead of a middle-aged man pretending to be an anime girl. Like that's the difference here, right?
Sure, sure.
But yeah. Next up, we have Freedom Wars Remastered was released on the 9th of January. There's not been too many big releases because we've just literally had Christmas and now it's January. So like,
Well,
there's this big
it's fuck
period
you,
of
it's
like,
January.
fuck you, it's January, but also fuck you, people don't really release games like around
No.
Christmas. They try and get them
But
out
everyone's really
before
spending their money
Christmas.
is the problem.
So yeah, Freedom Wars is another. I think it's a remaster of like an old JRPG. So I'm see what people are saying about this. I didn't read the reviews for Hatsune Miku. What are people saying about that? I know it's overpriced, but I also click pay when I see Miku. Hatsune Miku prevents Marvel Rivals tilt. Oh, maybe I need some Hatsune Miku then. I love Miku. Having her vibe on my taskbar fills my task with joy. My heart with joy.
I think I just need to see more of this vibe. I just
Mm.
think I just need to see more of the. I need to see like an independent review, like a video review of this. You know.
So one review is she the girl from Fortnite? Question mark. Question mark.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You now have the you now have the power to say Hatsune Miku. You mean the girl from Fortnite?
Yeah, but I think it'd be a challenge to find someone that, like a character who isn't in Fortnite.
They haven't added gremlins to my. Not they have
Is
gremlins in
Wallace and Gromit?
multiverses.
Is Wallace and Gromit in Fortnite?
No, Wallace and Gromit from Power Wash Simulator.
Yeah.
I think there's a walkabout mini golf map that is in Wallace and Gromit as well. Let's see. Somebody was given some criticism. It would be nice if she had a few more animations, maybe moved around as well. I think voice could be added as sounds like ah, ooh, or humming while sitting down, and not maybe too distracting as well as holding on her own, and maybe dancing or moving around when Spotify is reproducing something. The other animations are super cute, though the potential is this endless. Some animations could do autonomously, could be walking, hiding, sitting, standing, or maybe snoozing. Like, I think that these are all good ideas. Like, the ability to interact with your music and stuff like that is interesting, right? Anyway, Freedom Wars Remastered. When I managed to somehow make it to the beginning of the end game, so now is as good as any time to give my 2 cents in this game. Regarding bugs, the reason why some people have crash issues with this game is to do with the latest Windows 11 update version 24H2. I've literally been avoiding updating to this Windows 24H2 because I've heard so many bad things about it, and it keeps popping up on my screen asking me if I want to update, and I'm like, no.
What was it doing that's causing problems?
I think it's changing something with like the file structure, but it essentially okay. Rare Ubisoft W, like a bunch of different Ubisoft games were broken like on this update, and everyone was like, "Fuck Ubisoft! The games don't work on this update." I'm like, Windows literally updated underneath them, and then their game stopped. How is this Ubisoft's fault? And then Ubisoft went out their way to fix them on that update.
Yeah.
Game's great, but can't recommend is its current state. Multiple freezes, crashes, FPS drops, stuttering, performance issues on my 4080, 13700KF, Windows 11, 64 gigs of RAM. Not sure why. Okay, so there's issue. Onto the game. Whether you like this game is entirely dependent on whether you like Monster Hunter type games or not. I've never played a Monster Hunter game, so I don't know.
I think it depends on how the monsters react and how we interaction with the weapons and stuff are, but yeah.
See, this is the problem with like I review games a lot by comparing them to other games, but then there comes a problem where if you haven't played the other game, you have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would like this game based on whether I like Monster Hunter or not. I've never played Monster Hunter, but it seems like everyone is talking about Monster Hunter. A returned version of the Vita original is still a bit rough around the edges. What's your experience with Monster Hunter then?
I can't remember whatever the slightly newer but not the really new one is. I think
World.
I could be misremembering.
The newest one is Rise. The one before that is World, and then I believe Monster Hunter.
I could just hold on.
I can't remember. There's a new one coming out in February this year, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I have Rise.
Okay, Rise is the newest one, I believe.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know. It's just like there's no tutorial, so I have no idea like what I'm doing. The weapons seem they seem very unique and cool, but I don't quite understand how you're supposed to use them. And it is very much like, oh, you do some crafting stuff in town, and then you then go and you select a mission to go and kill some monsters, and one big monster, right? And that's like your contract, and then like you would get stuff from that, which you then use to craft new weapons and armors from that. And then and I guess at some point you go back and do these lower level stuff again as you like go ranking up to like bigger and bigger monsters. But yeah, I just struggled with this. Like I don't understand this. Like I've had a lot of failures. It's just like at least in Rise, like you seem to have to be in a group of other people. So like you'd like be like it just automatically put you together like an online sort of thing. And it's like I don't quite understand what the hell's going on. I'm struggling to keep up with the creature. It just seems to be a lot of the creature runs around, stops, and then it's like
Okay,
okay.
so somebody is saying here, if you're in the market for a janky yet hidden gem of the Vita game, Freddy Moores is a great pickup to tide you over until we get a Soul Sacrifice port. If you're on the fence, probably worth waiting on a scale. So I heard this was a Vita game, and somebody was saying like, I'm not sure how it would work as like a sit down and play game because I spent so much of this time just like throwing it on when I was on my handheld on my Vita. But apparently, the
Right.
Steam Deck performance is really good, and this could be to do with the fact that it's broken on Windows, whereas on Steam Deck you're running on Linux through Proton
Yeah.
potentially, and it's just like
Yeah.
60 FPS runs fine. Transferring between PC and Deck was painless thanks to cloud saves. That is good. But yeah. So it seems like potentially could be a good game. I don't know. What are your thoughts? But I don't. I think I have other
I don't.
JRPGs I would jump into first before this
Yeah.
one.
There's nothing here that really intrigues me that want to keep to look at it
Mm.
anymore, to be honest. But I could be missing something like big that's like this thing does and nothing else does. I don't know.
Ah,
It's not my
shit.
it's not on my list to like check out.
I just closed everything. Next up, we have a game called Cruel. This is this new pop-up of games that are essentially like 3D Hotline Miami games. So I'm talking like your Angerfoots, your the Doom Eternal's on here, which I think is pretty good. Like, if Cultic and Hotline Miami had a baby that was left on the porch of an abusive alcoholic and was raised to be a serial killer, that would be Cruel. Yeah, it's very much these quick kick down doors, get in, get out sort of games. Very fast paced, boomer shooter sort of things. A fast run and gun horror shoot with roller elements. So I've heard like you go into these rooms, there's a fire behind you, so you can't turn around, and you just what was that new game? Mad Mullet Jack is another one of these games where you have to keep killing, otherwise you die, sort of thing. But it's essentially, it's like a roguelike, so you shoot a bunch of guys, you go, you get an upgrade, and then you just keep going on, sort of thing. I think this looks really fun. I think this is one of the cooler games from the start of this year. What are your thoughts on Cruel?
I think I think there's the sense of motion and impact are really, really good.
Play the game for a bit. Wow, this is great, but birds feel like they are free damage. I exited the game to write this review and saw that there was an update that nerfed birds. The devs have read my mind. This is pretty cool. Would love to see additional game modes. Feels like what Doom wanted to be. The game itself is beautiful. Shooting is crisp. Just feels right. Movement is fluid. The game is just too short. I finished the first mode in about 1 hour. No firearm mode. Took me a few tries. Now struggling with the 1 HP mode, which is actually kind of cruel because it implies that you would have a run with no mistakes, which is kind of impossible. Hoping there'd be more content in the future because in the current state, the whole game feels like one level, which is sad because it's got so much potential. Okay. So they didn't release it in early access, but it is pre 1.0. So it seems like there is like potential to get quite a few updates in here because, they've released on 0.62 is the first patch I can see that they released on. So potentially there'll be a 1.0 release with more content. Then next up we have, I was going to change page, but I just remembered I literally closed everything. Wait, can I do this? Can I reopen every... Oh, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, Hyperlight Breaker came out.
There's a way to open a previous window, but I don't know how to do it.
I was trying to close... You can close all tabs to the right, and I was like, can I close all tabs to the left? And it was like, oh, what does this button do? And I closed every tab, and I was like, oh no, this was a big mistake. We have Hyperlight Breaker, which is the brand new game from Heart Machine, who've done games such as Hyperlight Drifter and the Ash game. What is it called? Is it still Is it still not on Steam? Solar Ash is the game that they also made. It's on Game Pass, and I think it's on Epic. Is it also on Steam now? I think it was like an Epic exclusive for a little bit, Solar Ash, potentially. But yeah, I know that the NoClip guys were making a documentary about this game, and they've been like documenting its development and the whole thing with them being like completely owned by Gearbox, and then Gearbox getting sold, and then not really sure what's going on. So they've had like an interesting development with this game, but it's come out in early access, and apparently people have got really mixed opinions on it, which is not a great sign. As someone who's been anxiously awaiting the release of Hyperlight Breaker's early access, I really want to like this game. As someone who loves roguelites, I really want to love this game. As someone who considers Hyperlight Drifter to be a masterpiece, I really want to like this game. All being said, it's really tough to enjoy in its current state. I know its early access is it has good bones. I'm not going to refund the game because I want Heart Machine to have the resources they need to keep improving the game. I appreciate they've been responsive to the community and I'm confident that someday the game will be good, but it's not there yet. Some reasons why. Performance. The improved since launch, I'm still not stellar with the tweaks. I'm hovering around 40 FPS, and that's good enough for me. This person is playing on a Steam Deck, potentially. They've played entirely on Steam Deck. So they're saying 40 FPS on a Steam Deck. The game in its full combat feels unfair. Hyperlight Drifter had some punishing combat at times, but the top-down style gave players the ability to master fighting lots of enemies at once by seeing everything on screen. This translates poorly to 3D. Yes, the game warns you when an attack is coming from off-screen, but the attack and enemies are so varied that it doesn't mean much mid-combat, other than you could spam dash and hope you don't get hit. Parry feels useless to me, as the window for it is too short and the attack animations for several of the enemies are drawn out / unpredictable. The attempt to emulate Drifter's mechanics in a 3D world falls flat. There are some familiar looking icons, sounds, and colors, but it doesn't feel like I'm in the same universe, which is the part I was looking forward to. I'll be hoping to keep an eye out for future updates, but I'm still very hopeful. But I can't recommend it to other people right now. So it seems like it's in a bit of a rough state right now, but it has the potential to be a good game, it seems like. Also, here's my question to you, Tony. As somebody who also owns a Steam Deck, do you get recommended way more Steam Deck reviews for games? This is something I've been thinking about recently.
I've not really noticed that, no.
I think it's something I see more that like my top review will be a Steam review.
Right. No, I don't really see that.
Right.
I feel like some of
Steam
it is
Deck
just
review.
like there's more people reviewing like certain things on Steam Deck more often. Like, like just people like playing stuff on a Steam Deck, so that's what they review it as.
Well, like more people, this second review, more people found it helpful than this review, but this one's been pushed up over it. I'm not sure if that's,
Yeah, I don't know.
indicative of the. Well, I could open it in like a incognito window and see it's signed out of Steam. Does that impact what the first review is? No, it's still the Steam Deck review, unless it's using my cookies or whatever to do that. But I can't, right, if I'm in an incognito window.
The cookies, there will be no cookies passed over. There'll only be temporary session stuff in incognito.
But next up, we have Heroes of Hammerwatch 2 came out, which is a sequel to Heroes of Hammerwatch 1, which I've become aware of recently from watching Twitch streams of it, and it looks really fun. It's like a roguelike action RPG that offers persistent progression, build your town, upgrade, and equip your heroes before taking down the ever-changing Dark Citadel, either solo or with a team of friends. It looks like... You know what game it kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of like... almost like Magicka, but not in the way it plays, but like in the feeling of it, where it's just like a very simple RPG that you can play with friends and can get expansive the more you go into it, sort of thing. I know the first game is always like very cheap, and I think it would be interesting to get some friends and play it together in co-op. But this second one looks like they've just taken that first game and improved on it a lot. It is this like little top-down roguelite action RPG pixel game. It looks pretty cool. This game has torn me as a standalone game. It's just fine. If you've never played Heroes of Hammerwatch 1, you will likely enjoy this game. Those who have played the previous game will find themselves wanting more of a sequel. It feels like it's reusing 85% of Heroes of Hammerwatch 1, so many of the same items, enemies, and same graphics can lead one to feel this way. I get using the same engine or somewhat updated version from the next game, but the amount of reuse in the sequel is annoying. From what I can tell after getting to the new game plus 4, so far the difference between this game and Heroes of Hammerwatch 1 are the following. Dashing is a thing now. Spell damage is now split across 4 elements. Stone is split into different resources. Almost every relic is copied over from the first game. 130 relics in the base game. 98 in the second game, 21 of which are considered new. Same classes as the first game, minus the priest and the witch hunter. Warriors, gladiator, thief is rogue. Subclasses at level 10, you can choose one of 3 subclasses given. Other than that, much everything else about this is the same as Heroes of Hammerwatch 1. I wish there was a unique piece to gear a legendary relic. Endgame scaling is very much broken at the moment. If you do not put 100% your stats into your primary stat, you will not be able to use new gear. Very fun to play with friends and quite enjoyable alone as well. I freaking love how much love and deals has gone into this presentation. So it seems like if you've not played the first game, you'll be like, yes, this is really fun. And if you have played the first game, you'll be like, this is kind of a lot of the first game again, potentially.
Sounds like it's minor improvements over the first one.
Yeah. And the last releases we have, Tony, we have Dynasty Warriors Origin, the reboot of the Dynasty Warrior genre. This came out on the 17th of January.
Is it going to be as lazy as the other ones?
Apparently, people seem to really like this reboot. They've gone back to their roots and they've made like a compelling game.
Okay.
Every cutscene, every character design,
crazy characters, crazy weapons.
Every line of dialogue in this game embodies a 14-year-old boy's idea of what is cool, and as a result, this is one of the coolest, greatest game in recent memories. Blending the charm of Koei's presentation of the Three Kingdoms era with the Shadow the Hedgehog's tears, CAW's. What is a CAW? Cores?
I don't.
Sonic the Hedgehog tier core. Let me Google that. Core. I don't understand what that means. Every young man who's ever played a Musu Empire game, not me, has created to fill this country with. I absolutely believe the protagonist in this game and his friends are one of the younger devs' childhood DW5E core factions. Maybe these are like... what's the word? It's not analogies. It's like, what is it when you replace a word with the individual letters? Not an anagram.
Initialization sort of thing.
Yeah, but there's a word for that, right? Anyway, maybe they're talking about other Dynasty Warrior games. I've never played a Dynasty Warrior game. I don't know what the hell this guy's talking about. Sounds like people are finding it fun. Combat is fun, weapons are fun, gameplay loop is great, the world map is neat, the game makes you feel powerful, story cutscenes are boring, English voice over lacks enthusiasm. This game cost me 102 Australian dollars. It's quite a simple review. I have heard Frank from the No podcast talking about this, and he was essentially saying like it's very much you're in these giant open battles, and he was saying like the previous Dynasty Warrior games, you would basically rush the general, try and take them out, and then that would be what you were trying to do. But when you get to the general in this game, it's more like a Sekiro boss battle that you have to like have like a you have to. He was like, previous games you turn your brain off and you don't think. Dynasty Warriors Origins, you have to kind of think some of the time, so it's pretty good. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, that sounds good. I just want the only thing I want is like you're gonna fight lots and lots of enemies with a single character. Like you want the weapons and movesets to be just as crazy as the voice lines. Let's say.
I think one of the most wild games I've ever played is Azura's Wrath, which is like a Xbox 360 like PS3 title. That was just absolute like batshit insane. Like you are a god and you have 4 arms, and then you get all your arms taken off, and you have to like start headbutting like waves and huge crowds of enemies to death and stuff like that. But yeah, I'd be interested to play this. This does have a demo, so maybe I'll check the demo out. Maybe we could do like a spotlight or something on Dynasty Warriors.
Yeah.
Because they did like, I think some of the later Dynasty Warrior games, from what I heard, were more like open world stuff, and people weren't really enjoying that. So I'll have to wait and see. Let's move on to quick news. First up, we have a speedrunner played Crazy Taxi with a live band to avoid copyright issues. You were asking me why they would do this, to which I was saying like, Crazy Taxi's original soundtrack has a lot of like licensed music in it that had to be removed. Like Crazy Taxi itself, like the version on Steam that was on there before it got removed, delisted, was it had stuff changed in it. So in the original versions, the pizza places in the game were actual like Pizza Huts. They were like branded, and there was like The Offspring and Bad Religion were on the original
Oh,
soundtrack for
yeah,
this
yeah,
game.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So in order to hang on, play the original soundtrack of the game while streaming it for this speedrunning charity event, Games Done Quick, what they decided to do was to get a band to cover the songs live, and they could continue to speedrun it without the music, which I think is a really inventive and cool way to do it.
So I assume they still get a performance license, but I assume it's much easier than any other thing you would have to do this. So
Yeah. Yeah, this next one is kind of interesting, Tony. Development of indie sim Fortune Run has been halted because the sole developer of the game has been sentenced to prison for 3 years.
okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if you remember this, but we actually made a spotlight video on this. I played this in
Yeah, yeah.
2022, and I said it was a game that had a lot of potential. It was a game that was very hard to get into, but potentially once you got into it, had really interesting like immersive sim like RPG systems. It was like very Blade Runner-y, had a cool soundtrack, and I believe I compared it to Lorne's Learn, where I was like, this potentially is like just way too much for anyone to actually get into, or is potentially like sort of like a masterpiece almost.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what was going on with the developer because apparently he's going to prison for 3 years. I'm not 100% sure what's happening with the game. Very quick update regarding the accounts. This is a post I haven't seen yet. I've gotten access to the other developer accounts. Actually, it was in my hands the whole time. I found the logins and stuff. I will be cross-updating the other platforms when the patching is done because there's a lot of bugs and I need to focus on actually fixing them first. Thanks, everyone.
So is this someone else then trying to fix the bugs?
So I believe he was working on this game. I believe he was working on this game with his wife as like the two devs, and then his wife had like a botched surgery and she was no longer able to work on the game, so he became the sole dev, and then
Right.
he then had to say he's no longer going to be able to work on the game. He just said it's unclear what was going to happen. What's going to happen about the update? I'm going to put down the news post because it feels weird to put patch notes at the bottom of this. The game isn't totally dead, but unfortunately, due to even further bad things, it's unclear what will happen. He said his case is 5 years old, and he like reiterates it's got nothing to do with like it's got nothing to do with like sexual crimes, but he said he did a bad thing and he's going to go to prison. So this is a very weird case. You don't normally see this in game development, where you have
No.
like this with the sole developer of a game is like, oh, I can't develop this. I'm going to prison. It's strange because this game is really interesting, but yeah, it's a shame to see. I'm wondering if he'll try and pick it up once he's served his time, or if somebody else could take
No,
it over for him. I'm not
maybe you can
sure.
ask for a piece of paper and a pen and start coding on a piece of paper.
Depending on where you live, you could have access to a computer and keep programming the game. That would be interesting to see.
I think you get time, and yeah, it depends on what country, I guess.
Because this game came out in early access in the end of 2023, and it's been receiving updates. But yeah, I don't know, man. Shit. Seems like people are saying even if the updates are on hold for now, we already have what is worth the cost. So it seems like people are happy with the early access stuff so far. But yeah, let's move on to retro emulation news. We have Harbor Masters have released Starship, a PC port of Star Fox 64. You can now compile your own PC port of Star Fox 64. It has been reverse engineered. Here is the project on GitHub. So you just have to get a legal ROM dump of USA 1.1 revision A, and you need to verify it and put it into the Z64 format, and then this will compile the code for you, and you can get a PC port of Star Fox 64. Really cool to see. Then we have CRT emulation in a simulation in a GPU shader that looks better than black frame insertion. So I don't know how much you know about stuff like black frame insertion and CRTs, but for the longest time, you've been able to do what's called BFI or black frame insertion, where you would put like strobe black lines into your image, which would create
double the frame rate.
Yeah. So you would, if you had like a 60 FPS game, and you had a 120 hertz monitor, you could do like, you could do 60 hertz black frame insertion in order to.
Well, some monitors just have that as by default. I think it can just be double whatever its normal double is, because the black frame is a lot easier to do.
And one thing this would do is you could take older content such as retro games and that were running at stuff like 60 hertz, and it would make them look smoother. You would reduce motion blur this way.
Yeah.
Don't ask me how. I'm going to say magic. I don't know the exact science.
Well, people do it for like
works. For
competitive FPS. They like swear by black frame insertions. So, I think.
Yeah, there's a thing Nvidia's developing that is basically doing black frame insertion.
And I was like, to me, I've tried it. It's not for me.
I can't remember what Nvidia's implementation is called.
So this is a shade thing. It's just like something that processed entirely on the GPU.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, stuff like RetroArch, you could have like BFI for 120 or 240, so you could go down as well. But the perfect display has been theorized as I think it's a 1000 hertz OLED, which gives you the same motion clarity as a CRT display because of the way the
actually doing the lines just displaying it line by line sort of thing. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
but we have Blurbusters here talking about how this new shader, which you can apply to, I think anything that will allow it to be placed into a game as a shader. Potentially, could you potentially put this into stuff like Reshade as a shader in order to add it to other stuff?
I believe so. I believe that's stuff you can do. Yeah.
We know, like, as soon as this got released, it immediately got added to RetroArch emulator as a thing now, so you can have CRT emulation on your retro games through RetroArch, which is really cool to see. Because I wanted to use RetroArch to emulate some older titles with BFI, but now I would try the CRT simulation now. The only drawback I would say with CRT simulation or BFI is it can make your screen darker because you're putting a bunch of black frames into it, but also
because over a period of time you've got almost 50% brightness, because like if you just take a double frame as like one is black, one is the content, you've got half the brightness from that.
So you're trading off less motion blur for less brightness, but also some people are quite sensitive to flickering. So if you're one of those people, and you have a lot of people will have this on, they won't be even able to tell it's on. But for some people, it'll be like a flickering effect that you can see.
Well, it's like a lot of cheap LED like flicker at 60, or actually in Europe 50 hertz, because you can double it or even triple it. But a lot of cheap ones don't bother with that, and people who notice that get headaches from those lights.
Yeah, but they're saying there's a flicker sensitivity note. Do not cut this in if you're sensitive to flicker. I've tried this. You won't be able to see this through your monitor, I don't think, because you're seeing this probably through a 1080p 60 FPS stream. But I got to tell you, this is a real-time simulation for 60 hertz content on a 240 hertz display with this on. This is it with it. Like the image looks a lot smoother with the CRT simulation on this side.
On the left side, it just looks black.
It looks black for you. You can't even see this. That's interesting.
It's like what I can see is like inverted.
Oh,
like,
I'm
dark
looking at
version
on
or
so
something, right?
on OBS. I can see like
It's
the
so
black
weird.
thing going up.
Yeah.
On my screen right now, this looks like a stable image that is not blurry.
Yeah.
But I can also, just by looking at this, I can tell it's slightly flickering.
Oh, you can actually you can actually tell it's flickering.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of I had. It's like it wasn't annoying. It's like every now and again I was realizing it.
I'm wondering if it's because I can see one half that's flickering and one half that's not flickering there.
Possibly.
I'd be interested to see a full image with this turned on.
Can you not go full screen and only look at one half? Is that not an option?
No, you can't move this bar around. I was trying it the other day, but looking at OBS, what you're seeing is fucked. But to me,
cursed.
The right side of the screen is like really blurry of this image in London, and the left side of the screen is like a still image for me. It's that much of a difference. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want, I would recommend you try this at home. If you have 120 hertz, 240, 480, there is simulations for that. I think you can do it at arbitrary numbers potentially. I'm not sure, but we now have these really lightning fast 240 hertz OLEDs with these CRT shaders on them, and we can actually start to get close to the motion clarity of a CRT, which is really, really cool to see.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
But yeah, let's move on to mods now. We have this mod on itch.io. It is Doom, but it is Doom the Gallery Experience. It's a mod that's created as a art piece designed to parody the wonderful, pretentious world of gallery openings. You can play this directly in your browser. I've got it down on itch.io.
I've never been to a gallery opening, so
you can go up to paintings and click on them. It'll tell you more information. Madonna and the Child, Francesca, Italian, 1940s. Yes, quite. You can take sips of your wine. And I like how the ammo pickups have been replaced with wealth, so you can just, yes, let me pick up some more money. Sorry, armor is cheese, apparently.
Okay.
Well, this is quite funny. Somebody made a edit of this on Twitter where when you look at the paintings or you like sip on your wine, they took like the grunt sound and they stretched it out, like elongated the sound, so he just goes, yeah, The Nativity, and it's even got like a link you can click on that will take you to like a museum page with more information about the piece. I'm just telling you now, Doom is a game that will just always be culturally relevant. It just will never not be. Like, people will always make crazy shit with this. Also, I did not supply my a Doom mod for this, so I'm guessing this is just working on the shareware version of Doom.
It just works.
It just works. Let's move on to gaming handhelds. We have a brand new gaming handheld from Atari, which is called the Atari Game Station Go, which from what I can tell is a handheld console that only plays like Atari arcade games in a handheld, because it's even got like a weird keypad and like knobs to twist to play Atari games. So it's specifically if you want to play Atari arcade games on the go, which I suppose some people want, but based on the Reddit comment I read at the top of the post, I thought I read it down, but I didn't. They were basically like, I don't think people who played Atari games would want this. Not even people who played Atari games would want to play Atari games, you know? Apparently, it was also announced a year ago and was already supposed to be out, but they've just quietly like gone, and we're announcing this for the first time.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's just people are making handhelds, and yeah, that you can play a portable Atari. Atari's trying to make a comeback. They bought Night Dive, and they've put out some like re-releases of games, and they're doing a handheld for some reason. Then we also have SteamOS is expanding beyond the Steam Deck. We have the Lenovo Legion Go S, which is the first officially third-party licensed handheld with SteamOS on it. What do you think about SteamOS going to other handhelds, Tony?
It's good to see other hardware getting. I mean, I assume
Yeah.
a lot of it's very similar hardware, which probably makes it a lot easier as well as a first step. I
I
know there's
think
actually been things working behind the scenes, like a more generic hardware like installation thing, but this is still good for my
like
dream.
you have like the official Steam button on your
Mm.
Lenovo Legion
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't
Go.
consider that.
But like, what was I going to say? A lot of people already they're taking like the ROG Ally X with its huge battery and better performance, and then just loading Bazzite onto it to get like SteamOS on it. I think when you
Yeah,
get stuff like SteamOS on the Asus ROG Ally, I think that's going to be a really compelling handheld because you're going to get the good trade-off of having like the great console-like experience of SteamOS, but with like a more powerful system.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
I believe this is not running on the. It's not running on the latest AMD chip. I think it's running on the 8040U, I believe. Let's have a look.
Yeah, that makes sense. I assume it's been in the works for a little bit.
Let's have a look. Legion Go S. Oh no, wait, let's have a look. Shred on the best games that exclusive AMD Ryzen Z2 Go and Z1 Extreme platforms. Do they have like a specific Steam Deck version? Gonna cost £600. This one. So the processor of this is a AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme. AMD just released like new Z1s, but like the non-extreme version is basically the same chip again. I think the Z2 is essentially the Z1 Extreme again, but with a different name.
Yeah, it's New Year.
Yeah, like AMD's naming stuff is really fucking confusing when it comes to some of these
Their
chips.
yeah, the mobile chips are absolutely awful. Like it's just there to be like, oh, we're still relevant, which is true. They are still relevant even with like older chips. But just like don't change the name. Just be confident with the product you've got. They are really good products.
Yeah, let's move on to Steam news because we were already talking about Steam. Deadlock updates will be a little bit more spaced out so Valve can improve our development process, but you can expect bigger major patches when they arrive. So they're working more on smaller Deadlock patches, but there will, bigger patches more spaced out. And also, like, speaking of this, they literally just were like, oh, yeah, by the way, here's 4 new heroes to the game. So they just did like a patch where they're like, we're going to add 4 new heroes to try out, which is cool to see. Do you want to talk about the Steam Awards winners, Tony? Because I don't think we actually talked about the winners of the Steam Awards.
No, we haven't yet.
Uh,
Um,
so the winner of the Game of the Year was Black Myth Wukong, which had Balatro, Stalker 2, Space Marine, and Helldivers 2 were also people there. I think this
yeah,
award is fine. I don't really have a
I
strong
don't.
opinion against this game.
No, it's not what I would have voted for. I mean, I didn't, but sure.
VR Game of
Just
the
seems to really
Year,
like the game.
I don't care about this one, honestly. Labor of Love Award, Elden Ring is one of the most confusing
Mm,
ones for me. I would have been happy with literally any other one, but
yeah.
Elden Ring being still like stuttery and broken on PC to this day is a very confusing Labor of Love Award winner. Because it got a
They're
DLC.
adding stuff. Yeah, we need a best DLC award because like it's completely
Tony, they
different to Labor
they
of
they
Love.
added a patch which added ray tracing that was impossible to see and made the
Yeah,
game run worse, and did not add any
but I
upscaling to
think,
compensate for the ray
but I
tracing.
genuinely think people are going like, oh, I think people are going, this is the DLC award. I think that's what they think,
So they're just voting for the Shadow of the Erd
and
Tree
I'm
DLC.
saying, yeah, we need a DLC award that makes sense of this because that's important for big DLCs. That's actually encourage better DLCs than just, oh, here's Dante's new skin for Devil May Cry 5. The old
Funky mode.
Capcom. Yeah. Like let's actually celebrate good DLCs.
Best game on Steam Deck award, God of War Ragnarok won. I think this was a popularity one potentially. I voted for Black. I would have been honestly. All these
I
games are
don't
pretty fine though.
does yeah I can't, we did check this out. Like it did, like if you put all the settings to load, this could run on a Steam Deck fine,
Yeah,
right?
I
I
think it
can't
was
remember
alright.
what the
But Better with Friends
no
award.
trader being as a finalist is interesting.
Helldivers 2 is also the winner. It was also my nomination for the Better with Friends award. It
Yeah,
was a pretty safe bet. Outstanding Visual
yeah,
Style award was Silent Hill 2, which okay.
yeah.
I suppose it does have a
Sure.
visual style to it. Most Innovative Gameplay award, Liar's Bar won. I suppose it is interesting, but I think there was potentially
Yeah.
more interesting games that could have been chosen, but that's just my opinion. I mean, this is a popularity contest. We have to remember we shouldn't take the Steam Awards too seriously. Best game you suck at award, Black Myth Wukong. I could see people sucking at a Sekiro
I think
or like a Souls
yeah, I
game
say
sort of thing.
it's the correct genre and it's the correct idea, so I don't have a problem with that. So
Best Soundtrack award, Red Dead Redemption. I won this award, Tony. I nominated Red Dead Redemption after I gave up that Persona would win this award.
oh yeah, yeah. I think I don't have a problem with it because it never won before, I suppose. But
It's also a game that came out like
uh,
fucking 20 years ago or something. But, you know, it's
yeah,
fine.
the music still hits, I guess.
Yeah. Outstanding Story Rich Game Award, Black Myth Wukong.
I don't agree.
Yeah, I don't know the
I
story
don't
of Black
agree.
Myth Wukong, but I don't think I would say
I don't. It's. I don't think it's very in depth. I don't think it's. I don't. Yeah. It's fine. I think it serves for what it's trying to do, but I don't think it's like a great story. At least not what I've seen. So I don't know. I think any Yellowman should have won this.
Yeah, I would say like a game like Mouthwashing is probably more deserving of this based on
Yeah.
the fact that it's literally a story game, but
Yeah.
I mean, people vote for their one. Sit Back and Relax Award, Farming Simulator 25, huge game. Everyone loves it. That's the Steam Awards.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to
The one I wanted to win didn't win, but they got nominated.
Yeah,
They
I
were,
would
they were
have.
very
I would have been happy if Tiny
the
had won, but it did not. So
on the I actually clicked like they were ecstatic they even got like became a finalist. I think they're just like a very small dev team, so I don't think they understand like how much like I don't know. They almost like don't like they seem bamboozled by the fact that people really like the game. It's like you made it something really good. I feel like you should realize.
I
You should be
feel like
proud
that's
of
kind
it.
of similar with Balatro with Local Thunk, where everyone wanted to talk to him, and
Yeah.
he was like, "Why? I just made a game that was fun to play with my friends, and I don't understand
Yeah.
why it's so popular."
That is fascinating. Yeah.
Let's move on to the Blunders Award. I don't know if you know, I was speaking to RuneScape Andy about this before he came on. RuneScape has put out
I
a
do know a
player
little bit about
survey,
this.
and they've
Yeah.
essentially said, what if we increase the price of your membership and gave you insanely expensive tiers so you don't have to deal with features such as ads, mobile-only access, shorter AFK timers, and you could get improved features such as improved data access, pre-verified account recovery, name reservations, pause membership, enhanced player support, advanced account security features. And potentially, Tony, the cost of this membership could go up to $300 a year for the top version of this.
I do not understand.
Yeah. Also, one thing I also learned about researching this in RuneScape, you pay per character for memberships in RuneScape.
What?
Yeah.
You don't just have like a set number of slots.
No, like looking at other MMOs, like you pay for a subscription and then you have like as many characters as you can make.
Yeah, but things like Guild Wars, where it's you pay for the expansion or the base game, and it's free. You then have a set number of character slots. You pay for more character slots.
But with RuneScape, I guess RuneScape's different because it is much more about leveling up the one character. But
Well,
with
yeah, but
this
if you want to
thing,
try something else, why punish you for that?
you are very much like you can have and as well, Tony. I want to point out these membership tiers, the one and the first and the second one, will give you a membership for old school RuneScape or RuneScape 3. So you would have to choose if you were playing old school RuneScape 3. Why you would want to
I
play
think anyone
RuneScape
plays
3?
RuneScape 3.
I don't know. I have a friend who plays RuneScape 3. So
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with them.
but then if you start paying, $200 a year, then you can play RuneScape 3 and old school RuneScape on 2 characters. So that's huge on membership,
It's just insane. Like,
It's just safe to say,
I just think there's better MMOs to pay for.
well, I was literally like saying to my friend, I was like, if you pay at the most expensive price, $15 a month, you can play WoW Classic, World of Warcraft Retail, World of Warcraft Classic, the Burning Crusade, and you get unlimited character slots. You get access to all of that stuff, and you don't have to pay for any of this extra bullshit. And I'm like, this RuneScape plan is making Blizzard look reasonable. Like,
yeah, and also like, how I don't know what's the subscription on like Final Fantasy. 14?
I don't think it's that expensive either. No, I think
I think it's that expensive.
you compare this to any other MMO, and I think this is just fucking ridiculous. Like,
like even as like you compare it to like something like Guild Wars, where like its entire economy is like based on like buying skins, like with gems source stuff, right? You like just put like imagine how much you could buy in the store like every month. Like you'd have like a lot of expensive stuff. I'm not saying it's worth it, but compared to I'm going to call nothing. It's just
Guild Wars 2 is also a free to play game at the base game, right?
Yeah, the bases, the normal open world is.
I guess RuneScape is free to play, right? If you don't have a membership.
Yeah.
At the base, so we should kind of think about it more as a free to play game potentially. That you're paying for membership for like the bonus.
Yeah, but if you're gonna, that's true. But I still feel like if you're gonna add a subscription on top of it, you should treat the subscription, review the subscription as a subscription. Like, what are you actually getting for the cost?
Well, it's safe to say the RuneScape community and Reddit have gone into full protest and have completely melted down.
Didn't they remove the post and back president and go, we'll think of a new way to do it in the future?
Yeah, well, a lot of people are saying this is like a door in the face tactic where they go, "Oh, here's a really awful thing. We'll compromise and give you a slightly better version of this in order to."
There's still going to be a bad thing in the future that's going to happen.
Well, the thing about like Jagex is they keep getting bought up by like random Chinese investment firms, and every time they come in, they go, "How can we milk this for a bunch of money?"
Yeah.
So they put out these surveys that go,
"That's not a game.
How would you feel if we tried to charge you a bunch of money for stuff you don't want?"
But that's not just a game problem. That's just like companies in general. Oh, we're just gonna like, you're a small business with like your customers, the people you sold to. No, now the shareholders have bought you. Now we're the customers. How do we milk the old customers?
Speaking of Chinese devs, did you hear that TikTok is now officially banned in the US?
Yeah.
It
was upheld by the Supreme Court.
Did you also know that means every app developed by ByteDance is now illegal in the US, including Marvel Snap?
I did not know Marvel Snap was
Marvel Snap is now completely shut down in America because their parent company ByteDance is no longer able to service apps in the US. So this is like a weird unintended consequence of the TikTok ban in the US, which I thought was kind of interesting.
I saw I was watching a legal Eagle video on like this. This is a tangent. This isn't related to gaming at all. But I just agreed with this part of it. And it's like if they wanted a law to like have data protection, they should have done what Europe and the UK didn't have actual data privacy laws because America doesn't have a data privacy law. And it's like just do that, and it would have been far better, and it would like allow them to like be able to still exist and like be able to change themselves. Like what they've done is like, yeah, just like, oh no, you're not allowed in the country.
Let's move on. Nintendo news. We got the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal. I think this was kind of disappointing, the Switch reveal, kind of half because we've seen some of the stuff leaked already, but also because they didn't really show off too much. So we know, based on the page, there is no release date yet, and there's no pricing either. There's essentially an announcement where they've
Yeah.
saying, hey, come back in April and we'll actually show off games and how this thing works. What we do know is that it is a bigger screen. It looks like about 8 inches. So it's like actually getting to, I think it's potentially bigger than a Steam Deck in terms of screen size,
Oh
which is
wow.
kind of nuts.
Okay.
Steam
Yeah.
Deck screen is about like 7.4 inches, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I could
Um,
measure it, but
yeah. Whereas the original Switch, I think, is like 7 inches, right?
I've no idea how the original. I never owned one.
It's kind of hard to. Oh, so the original Switch is 6.2 inches, but that's
Oh, okay.
because it's a different as well because the Steam Deck is 16 by 10 rather than the Switch being 16 by 9 as well, which is
Yeah,
makes it
yeah.
interesting to measure. But I think this makes. We don't know if it's officially 8 inches, right? It looks from the leaks, it looks like it is going to be 8 inches, and this looks a lot bigger than
We
the
don't
original Switch's screen.
we don't have dimensions. We don't have official dimensions of it yet.
Well, okay, so because we see footage of what looks like a new Mario Kart game, which is obviously going to be a big system seller because I don't know
Yeah.
if you know this, but Mario Kart 8 is like, I think,
Yeah.
potentially the best selling console game of all time.
Do you,
Um,
I was just gonna say, quickly say, do you think like the I thought we would call it the joystick controller things look they're like more rounded? Do you think they're more comfortable to hold?
they're bigger, which definitely.
They're bigger as well, yeah. I just always thought the Switch, when you separate them out from the thing, like it kind of was uncomfortable to
One thing to point
grasp.
out about this map as well on Mario Kart, Tony, is there's some sort of weird like gas station pickup. It's like really expansive. You can see
Oh,
really far. So it's definitely
yeah.
something that's utilizing the Switch 2, but also something some people pointed out. There's definitely more than 12 races going around right now. So there's a lot more players that you can potentially play in this Mario Kart game. And the start of the Mario Kart track has space for 24 people.
Oh wow, okay.
So you could potentially have like a Mario Kart multiplayer game that has a lot of people on it,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
very
That'd
interesting.
be
Also, another thing to point out is the Donkey Kong on this game has been completely changed from the original Donkey Kong design to the Mario movie design of Donkey Kong. He has like much darker eyes and more cartoony sort of design.
right, okay.
Um, also,
I have to see them side by side to have an
we
opinion on
don't
that,
get
I
to really
think.
see what the dock does other than it's slightly redesigned. It has more of like a curved design to it. We do have a Nintendo Switch page here. But I'm going to skip the trailer because I've already seen it. They did give confirmation that the Switch 2 will be backwards compatible with the Switch 1 games, including digital and physical. So there will be a physical
That's
SD
good.
card reader on the Switch 2, which will let you play your Switch 1
Okay.
games on it.
A
Which
rare win on
yeah,
that front.
they have said certain Nintendo Switch games may not be supported on or fully compatible with the Nintendo Switch 2. Details will be shared on the website at a later date. So this is potentially like obvious ones are like the Nintendo Ring Fit. The controllers are way smaller than the new controllers, so
Oh,
the Ring
sure.
Fit is not
Yeah.
going to work with the new Switch 2. Or like the Nintendo Labo, the VR headset is not going to work with the Switch 2 because it's designed around the dimensions of the Switch 1.
Yeah. That makes
Those are
sense. So I
those
think
are
that's pretty
obvious
fair.
ones, but we
Yeah.
potentially there could be other games that are weird
There
edge
could be others.
cases that don't
Yeah.
work. Um, Potentially, what they could do is, they could be like what would be really cool to see from Nintendo, but would be very unlike Nintendo, which is why I don't know if it will happen, is if they could be like, okay, Tears of the Kingdom runs at 30 FPS on the Switch 1, you plug it into the Switch 2, it now runs at 60 FPS. That would be an easy win,
sure,
right?
yeah. Yeah, that'd be good.
But do you see the image on this website? If this image is to scale, this screen looks like an 8-inch screen compared to a 6.4-inch screen. Like it is much bigger screen. And like potentially having a screen that big and using less of the bezel, they could potentially be going for a 1080p screen on the Switch handheld as well. Like the thing with the Switch 2 reveals, I have more questions than answers when it comes to the Switch 2. Like I'm going based on assumptions and leaked specs. One thing that was interesting to point out, Tony, is one of the leaked things that has been so magnetic Switch Joy-Cons instead of rails, so you just click them in. That's all been confirmed. An extra USB.
How does that click in and stay clicked in though?
Magnets.
Yeah.
It's magnetic.
Magnets are weak to sliding forces.
It's not sliding, you're popping it in.
I'm saying, yeah, so it's physically in once it's in, so you can only come out.
You press a button on the controller and then that turns off the magnets and then it comes off, sort of thing. We don't 100% know. But...
So there's no way for it to slide. It can only go in and out one, or the two directions.
Whereas with the Joy-Cons, you would you would press a button.
It comes in and slides in.
And you would slide it off the rail, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with these ones, you're not sliding them on rails. They are magnetic on and off.
Yeah.
Right?
So it looks even more satisfying to snap then.
And they, like with the Switch, they have like the click sound. With like this, it's now like the dunk, like the magnets going in sound seems to be where they're going with it now, sort of thing. Thonk. Yeah, like a thonk.
I think I'm proud because I'm a lot of I think just like magnets are just like I don't know what it is. Like, maybe the magnets are just cheaper, like more controllable or something. But I just see magnets being used more and more often these days.
So there is a USB-C port on the top and the bottom this time. So you get two USB-C ports. The headphone jack is back, so you have a headphone jack, which is huge. Because I remember, I think for the longest time, there was no headphone jack. I think the original Switch may not have had a headphone jack. I'm going to check my Switch. Does it have a headphone jack? Let's have a look. I have the Switch OLED here. It has a headphone jack on the top. Yeah, it's got one here. So I don't actually know if the original one had, because I think there was a thing where potentially you couldn't use Bluetooth headphones with the Switch. But yeah, interesting to see how they've like changed things around. Did you see like the people who've got like a 3D model of the new leaked Switch 2 and were like showing it around at like CES? They had like a 3D printed version of it for accessories.
No.
And apparently Nintendo sent lawyers to stop the people like trying to show off 3D printed versions of the new Switch 2 before it was announced.
I would also I think that one's fair. Like I think controlling like how you want to launch a product, I think
But one of the leaked things about the Switch 2 controls was they would have some sort of mouse mode where you would like put it down on a desk and use it like a mouse. And on this trailer, they haven't confirmed it, but they show the Joy-Cons on their side sliding across the desk like a mouse. So you would have it like down on it would like you could like hold it with a hand, right? And then you could move it around like a mouse and then use the buttons on the side in order to, do things. And people are saying this would be really interesting for games like Mario Maker, where like mouse support would be really useful for making your own levels and stuff like that.
Imagine, what if you could just plug in a USB-C mouse?
What if you could play FPS games with a mouse? That would be really interesting on a Switch. Yeah. Imagine a Metroid Prime 4 in mouse. That is actually what I want. Metroid Prime 4 is the next big Switch title. I think it's going to be cross-platform between Switch 1 and Switch 2, and even if it's not, it'll be playable on Switch 3 through backwards compatibility.
I would love to see mouse support. Have mouse and keyboard support at this point. Like, it just shouldn't be this complicated thing. It's like, it's so easy to just like take whatever like PC driver like and adapt it to your stuff. Like just do it.
Mm. But yeah, mouse mode and the controllers would be really cool to see. The controllers are bigger. The Joy-Cons look bigger and they move slightly more, but they could just be normal. They could be using the same controllers. We have no idea if these are hollow effect joysticks. Like
I would assume not.
they don't particularly look like it, and if they are using the same controller design base, there could be more Joy-Con drift issues, which would be a really shame to see. But yeah, that's everything we know about the Switch 2 so far. So pretty much not gonna. Also, there's a button on the Joy-Con below the home button on the base Switch. There's nothing there. There's a button on the Switch 2, and it's not been explained at all. Nobody knows what this button is for, but it exists on the Switch 2, and we have no idea why.
Okay.
So yeah,
Interesting.
everything we know. Do you think that a new Mario Kart is enough to get people to buy a Switch? Would you buy a Switch 2 because then there's a new Mario Kart game coming out? What would you buy a Switch 2 for? Is my question to you.
Well, I feel like I'm not. I probably would never buy a thing because of one thing unless it was like the best thing ever. Like Baldur's Gate 3 could sell a system for me.
Okay.
Not many other games could. Dragon Age Origins could sell a system for me, but not many other games could. But I'm thinking the other way. It's like if I've never owned a Switch, I know this is very few people at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, oh, if I could just buy a Switch 1 game and put it into the Switch 2, that's great.
Yeah, and they've
How about the Switch 2?
already ported all of the Wii U catalog to the Switch, so you have like a huge catalog of games
Yeah.
to play from.
Yeah, that's actually fantastic.
You could potentially run them faster as well with the new hardware. I think
Yeah.
I'm very
I think
interested.
the hardware looks nicer.
I'm very interested in getting a Switch 2 at launch because one, I am very intrigued about Nvidia handheld stuff. I think it's something we do not see, and I think Nvidia, like DLSS on a handheld, is really compelling. And two, I fucking love Nintendo games, and if they come out and announce like a new mainline Mario game, I think I will get it on launch because I love Odyssey and I want to see another Odyssey level game on a Switch too. I think that'll be really interesting. Like, all we know at the moment is there will be some sort of new Mario Kart game, which obviously, you know, I would probably get the new Mario Kart game, but it's not something where I'm like, I need a Switch 2 to play the new Mario Kart game. Metroid Prime 4 is, again, it's not the most popular series, Metroid Prime. I'm not the biggest fan of Metroid Prime in terms of, like, compared to the other the 2D Metroid games as well. I'm really hoping there's, like, you know, a Breath of the Wild or a Mario Odyssey that they announce in April to be like, okay, this is the big game to play on the Switch 2. Let's talk about CES. VLC was at CES and they were demoing real-time AI subtitling for videos.
This is the thing I was alluding to earlier, by the way.
Yeah. So you would be able to
the one used for AI thing.
VLC automated subtitle generation and translation based on local and open source AI models running in your machine, working offline and supporting numerous languages. Demo can be found at our CES booth in Eureka Park. That's just called CES. If you don't have subtitles for something and you want them added, then you can use AI and VLC to add them. I think that's a really cool feature.
I think at the moment I'm using VLC. I don't know how I've not ported stuff over to Jellyfin properly, so like I'm still in a weird limbo. Like all like the Blu-ray stuff I've ripped to my hard drives. But like I've got a couple of those. Like I don't
your NAS.
No, I haven't got a NAS. Like I guess a separate NAS thing set up. No. Problem is that with all the hard drives I've won, like the total just becomes quite expensive. But I think I've now like locked into what sort of thing I want to get. I'm just gonna go for like a 5-drive sort of small thing, just like put under and just like stack it underneath my PC, and it'll be like quite a compact little setup. Then
Well,
the whole thing then be like a mid-tower size.
A post I saw at about VLC at CES made me chuckle a lot. It is this post on Blue Sky that said, "After days of Gristas and conmen at CES, we stumbled upon the booth for VLC. They were all dressed as wizards and told us, we have nothing to sell, but we just decided to show up. I told them I'd been using their software to pirate media for 15 years, and they said, keep doing that. Sometimes it is worthwhile to meet your heroes." VLC Media Player Giga Chats, you love to see it.
Yeah, the
Let's
free
talk about-
software people are crazy.
Free and open source.
Well, it's more, well, free software is like even beyond open source. Like open source is like still controlled by the company. Free is like no, you do whatever you like with it.
NVIDIA 50 series was announced. The 5090, the Blackwell GPU, features 21,760 CUDA cores, 32 gigabytes of GDDR7 memory, and 575 total power draw. So you would be looking like a 5090 and a 7800X3D. You would be looking at like 1,000 watt CPU minimum, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Look, I've looked it up. I think that is the minimum recommended for that. So there's a lot of power
that makes
draw.
sense though. Yeah.
So the 5090 is going to cost basically £2,000.
Yeah,
for the base model, the Founder Edition.
Absolutely insane.
Then the 5080, 16 gigabyte, they've actually gone down in price. They've actually gone down to £979, down from 1,100, which was for the 4080 on launch.
Yeah, the Super came. The Super was slightly like it's still more expensive than that, but it was like closer to that than the normal.
The
80.
Super was the price adjustment, basically. It really didn't have that much more performance.
Nothing changed, just price.
It was just like price. The 5070 is actually looking kind of compelling. So the 5070 12 gigabyte, which like a high end to / mid range card, depending on how you want to think about it, still 12 gigabytes of VRAM, £530, which I think is actually kind of compelling.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that it's like, or in the 20 series and before, like the 80 card would be around £750, right? Sometimes it's 700, like depending on the year, right? But so it's like to me, the 5070 Ti has become the 80, and the 70 still seems like the price it used to be. That seems to be the correct price.
And if you want you want that extra so the 5080 has 16 gigabytes of GDR7. The Ti version of the 5070 will also be a 16 gigabyte card. It'll be £729, and it will have 1,400 AI tops.
I feel like I think I personally think 12 gigabytes is enough. I don't know. Right. I'm also finding the 5070 pricing and at least these specs, like written specs, without anything else, like quite compelling.
It depends what you're doing. Like 8 gigabytes is not enough generally for higher textures.
No.
Like when we're talking about 4K textures and we're talking about stuff like frame generation is really heavy on your VRAM. So if you're doing like 4K frame generation stuff, that's when it's going to start hitting your VRAM. 32 gigabytes of VRAM, you're looking more at like generating video AI on your graphics card. This is like a lot of VRAM.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of stuff you need this much.
You're doing professional stuff that you need that only those things will eat that sort of
if you're generating your own AI models, or you're like doing like intense video editing, like genuinely this could be like a game changer for you. But
if you're processing high textures,
use this much.
If you're developing games like high texture, like in things with the render, like Blender rendering sort of stuff, like you probably need like a huge VRAM as well.
So should we talk about some of the features that come with this? Oh, did you hear Jensen's comment about how the new 5070 will equal the performance of the 4090?
Oh, I saw
asterisk.
And then asterisk. I saw it clarified. It's like, again, it's one of the things. Like they didn't need all that bollocks. They should have just come out and just compared apples to apples and then
asterisk with 4 times frame generation. You know,
I just feel like if you just compared apple to apple, it would still look incredible for the price. They didn't need to do any of the bollocks. Also, I just want to mention quickly, maybe I've not seen this jacket from Jensen before. It looks quite good. I don't know.
He's
What
always
do you?
wearing his jackets,
What?
you
Well,
know.
I just want. What's your opinion on the jacket? I saw a clip of it. And I go, what the fuck is that jacket? Like, what's your opinion?
I have no strong opinion either way, I don't think.
I have very strong opinions, and I don't like it.
Okay.
He pulls it off. I don't like it, but he pulls it off.
So one of the 50 series exclusive features is the DLSS 4x frame generation. So not only can you generate one extra frame of frame generation through the optical flow on the 40 series cards, there is now this new feature to generate 2 additional frames or 3 additional frames to the 4x
Three in
generation.
total, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you'll generate times 4. You're generating a total of 4 frames, but one of them is the real frame, and then there's 3 fake
one of them's
frames.
for the render
Quotation marks.
pipeline, and one is through the AI. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you said this is exclusive to the 50 series.
Generating more than one frame, or the X2 mode, is
Interesting.
exclusive to the 50 series. Yeah.
That is fascinating. Okay.
But one thing that surprised me a lot was that Nvidia actually announced a lot of features that were available on every single RTX card. So they've improved the times 2 frames gen performance, so it uses less VRAM and runs faster, and you'll be able to get this performance on the 40 series cards, which support frame gen.
That's one. I was going to mention that on the VRAM thing before. Actually, it's like a lot of the problems that we're having with VRAM turned out to be bugs in engines, and like they weren't actually supposed to be using as much VRAM as they were originally using.
So what this is showing here is, you have Cyberpunk path tracing, you have 27%, 27 base FPS. DLSS 2 takes that and renders it up to 71. Then you have frame generation is 140, and then 4x frame generation, you can start to hit those 240 hertz, screens. One thing that intrigued me was the fact that it adds quite a bit of latency to generate a frame, an extra frame. But if you generate like 2 frames or 3 frames, the actual hit of doing that isn't as big as the initial hit of generating frames.
Can I speculate on that? I think maybe it's more like a parallelization thing where it can do like you can generate all 3 frames at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's like not a huge impact at that point. It's just like how wide your pipe is. Which is why it's a 50 series exclusive, because the other architecture doesn't allow for it. Well, it probably could without being shit. That's my thinking.
Yeah, but then we also had to go along with this, extra latency from the frame generation, because I think it adds like the initial hit was adding something like 40 milliseconds of latency without reflex, and then generating 4 frame x 3 frames times 4 mode was an extra like 10 milliseconds of latency potentially, but it was like way less than the initial hit of the generation of the frames, right? We where was I going with this? What was I saying? We have a new reflex technology in order to compensate this. So this is really, I think the new reflex technology is probably the thing I'm the most interested in. It's also the thing I understand the least. So I'm going to try and explain it by how I understand it.
Okay. I thought it was more to, like it. Yeah, it's like
it's using
almost like a timing thing. I thought it was like it's like making everything like line up, sort of thing.
So what is it? It's using asynchronous reprojection. So it looks where your mouse is and where it's moving to, and it renders that on the CPU, right?
Yeah.
But usually what it has to do is it goes, okay, the CPU says your mouse is here and it's going to be here, but we have to wait for the GPU to render what's outside of your vision.
Yeah.
But what happens is you then have to wait for the render queue of the GPU or the CPU to send that render queue request to the GPU to say, I need you to render this. What this new reflex is doing is it's essentially going, oh, okay, you want your mouse over here, I will just
So
move the image across, and then I will use AI generative fill to fill in the gaps that I don't know what needs to be there for the frame.
while the game is still like going processing, oh, you're here, and now here's the new data.
So what they're doing is they are actually, the result is a frame which shows the furthest camera position seamlessly inherently in the rendering pipeline. So what they're doing is they're actually taking the edge of your screen with this technology turned on, and they're just continuously using AI to guess what it's going to look like if you turn and render outside of that frame. And you can see it here with they've had to create this technology called in-painting, where you can see it with in-painting off, you have this constant like flashing, like, oh, there's something. It's not really understanding what's supposed to be on the outside of the screen, or like what's behind my gun when I move the gun character of the first person model. But with this predictive rendering, when it's in-painted, they're using AI to go, okay, it probably looks something like this in real time, and it actually looks quite convincing, it seems like. Especially considering the fact that playing a fast-paced FPS game, you're not going to be looking towards the peripheral vision most of the time. In terms of like looking for small inaccuracies, you're mostly going to be focused on the center of the screen. If you do see like flickering in your peripherals, it will fuck up your vision, sort of thing. But I think this looks really good.
Yeah, I'd like to see it like a real thing, like have it like analyzed. But yeah, like if it looks like this, then I think that's a fantastic way to
Because they're using
reduce
this
the
in-painting
latency.
AI model. It's taking like the edge color of your screen. It's using stuff like the depth data, and it also has access to motion vectors, so it can go based on this data. It should look something like this, which I think is
Because I
really
think because it has to
interesting.
be implemented in the game, I assume, which I think will help this work a lot better than like if it was like a running on top of it.
But yeah, they were showing like using a 5070 in the finals at 4K with max settings and global illumination in the finals. There was 56%, 56 milliseconds of latency with reflex low latency that was half to 27 milliseconds. And by enabling reflex 2 frame warp, this cuts the input lagged by an entire frame time, reducing latency by another 50% to 14 milliseconds. This results in an overall latency reduction of 75% by enabling NVIDIA Reflex 2 with frame warp, which is really awesome because I like NVIDIA Reflex stuff because I'm somebody who is quite sensitive to input latency. So why I generally I'm not a big fan of frame generation. But if we can get to a point where the latency hit is taken back by this new Reflex 2, or potentially I can just turn this on in games to just get even better latency without frame generation stuff. Because this is a feature that's also coming to, I believe, every single RTX card. You'll be able to use this new Reflex technology on all of them.
Yeah.
Which is cool to see. But yeah. I don't know if, did you see like the 2 clips Phillips or like the Linus Tech Tip videos about asynchronous prediction, where it's like you take like a 30 FPS world and then you project,
I saw that.
predict what is going to happen around it, and then you can create like what looks like 240 hertz on like a 30 FPS game.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this reminded me a lot like what they were what he suggested.
Yeah, but they've been doing asynchronous protection for years in VR, and it's only now NVIDIA's being like, oh, we could actually do this in games. Because what it was doing was trading off fidelity for latency, and for the most part, games have been like, we don't want to trade off fidelity, we want more fidelity. But now gamers are more like, okay, there is games where we want more improved latency rather than fidelity, and this is where this technology can come in. DLSS is getting an upgrade, which will be available on all of the new cards as well. It is getting a brand new transformer model rather than a CNN model. So I do not understand what the difference between the transformer model and the CNN model is, but from what I understand, we are kind of hitting the limitation of CNN models for AI. Whereas these new transformer models, which are like I think like video AI, like Sora sort of stuff is trained on, are much more we've kind of hit the limit of CNN, but like transformer models, there's a lot more stuff to grow. Like I know, for example, did you know like at Nvidia they have like a supercomputer that is just constantly training DLSS. Like that, they have this
Yeah, yeah,
giant supercomputer, and that's all it does. It trains DLSS, which is pretty interesting.
yeah.
Um, but apparently, according to um, compared to the CNN model, there should be up to 5% less FPS by using this new model, according to NVIDIA rep. But you will get much better lighting, image quality, and less ghosting. So it's like NVIDIA reflex warp technology is like trading visual quality for improved latency. This would potentially be like, okay, I'm going to trade better image quality for potentially more latency through less frame rate, sort of thing, right? So it's
Yeah, I
kind of
think
a
that
trade-off, right? And potentially,
it's a small trade-off.
it says up to 5%. I think this
Yeah,
is probably going to run a lot better on the 50 series potentially, but we don't know the
yeah, I would
exact
assume so.
numbers.
I think it's a trade-off I would definitely make personally.
Hmm. We're looking at the bag on Alloy's back on the Transformer. Did you see like the Cyberpunk
Well,
video they put out where it was showing like characters in the
I
background had like massive ghosting trails on them on the CNN model, and as soon as they put the
I
Transformer one
actually
on, it was completely gone.
I quite like
Um,
this one when it's not zoomed in. Like I think the whole like her whole background looks in motion, not like static. In motion looks more blurry with the old one. I think it
right.
looks. I mean, I'm looking at it through like multiple layers here, but they are zoomed in on the scene. So I think
Yes,
that's
sir.
me is what I'm excited about because I think that I have had issues with like this looks
But
more blurry than I was
I'm
expecting.
very happy with DLSS as it is at the moment, like
Yeah,
the current iteration. There
yeah,
has been games like Metro Exodus where the ghosting has been like absolutely awful in certain parts with like the red dots
yeah.
on the end of the gun, and you would just see like a trail of red dots as you move your gun around. Like I would love to try like the Transformer model on that game specifically. Because what they're doing with this, Tony, is this will be available for all RTX GPUs. An
Mm.
upcoming NVIDIA app update will support DLSS overrides. This will allow you to choose whether you want to run the new transformer model. You can set the frame generation mode. So if a game supports 1x frame generation, you could be like, actually, I want you to try and use the 4x frame generation, and you'll be able to switch it
Okay, that's cool.
through the NVIDIA app. There is
Yeah,
already
that's really good.
a NVIDIA inspector which lets you. There's already like third-party apps people have made to swap the DLL file from a game to override which DLS version it's using. But the
This
advantage of
just does it
this
straight.
would be it does it officially from the app, and potentially if you have
Yeah,
a multiplayer game, changing a
where it just
DLL
load.
file would may potentially trigger
Yeah.
anti-cheat stuff. So if it goes
Well,
to
this
NVIDIA's
is just
driver.
loading from the GP. This is just what the GPU is pulling.
And also, Tony, you can even set DLLA for games that don't have native support through this as well.
Okay, I'm curious to how that's. Okay.
The DLLA support would require the game to support DLSS in the first place, though.
Oh, okay. Okay,
So
right.
if you don't
That
know,
makes more sense.
DLAA takes instead of rendering up from a lower resolution, you're rendering up from a base resolution into a higher resolution to get better anti-aliasing. Is how that works. So
Yeah,
like it's better image quality, better anti-aliasing when you have like a performance overhead sort of thing.
it's kind of like a super sampling
Yeah,
idea,
essentially,
right?
it's like super sampling. Um, Then let's move on to RTX neural shaders. This is like future tech sort of thing. But essentially, RTX neural shaders could be used to compress textures by up to 7 times, saving massive amounts of graphic memory. So you'd be used to create cinematic quality textures and even more advanced lighting in games. So like they show it off here. This is their new demo, Zora. But they show off like the standard material for this like gem uses 47 megabytes of memory, and then they show an RTX neural material, which has more detail, but is using less memory at the same time, which I think is really, really cool. Like if you look at these two cloths here, you have the standard material, whereas you have this much more detailed cloth, which is using even less memory. So you'll be able to use you'd be able to compress textures with a local neural shader on the graphics card itself, meaning you could have much better looking games on much less memory, which is really cool. But I don't think, given that games develop on like a 7-year cycle, we're probably not going to see this anytime soon. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see where that goes. But yeah, that's the end of the CES. That was the stuff I was interested at CES. It was like VLC and NVIDIA. I don't know about you, if you saw anything else that you were interested in.
No, I didn't really bother watching videos from subbers that I don't.
Yeah.
I kind of. They're normally like too early for me to care about, and it's like these sort these things are fine because like they explain technologies that are upcoming. Like I think this is more of a better representation. The other stuff that seems to be a little bit more, maybe not speculative, but too early.
Let's move on to VR news and then we can end quickly. Windows 11 is removing support for Windows Mixed Reality, rendering all Windows Mixed Reality headsets useless. I had not heard of this until Windows 11 just informed me that Windows Mixed Reality support is being removed with the latest updates. I decided to cancel the updates and do some Googling to find out that my headset will now be completely useless. It's a really old, outdated headset. The first HP Windows Mixed Reality headset, not a Reverb model, but it is still something I used occasionally. I understand that VR is extremely niche, and the Windows Mixed Reality headset's even more niche. The fact that functional hardware can be killed off like this is just plain unacceptable. If there was an open source alternative that keep them alive, I would be okay with this, but as far as I understand, there isn't. So yeah, that seems like Microsoft's like, look, we don't want to support the Windows Mixed Reality platform anymore. If you want to keep getting Windows updates on Windows 11, then we're not going to let you use your VR headset anymore, which is a real shame to see.
Yeah, it sucks.
And then we also have some more kind of sad VR news. An update for the Power Wash Simulator VR community. There's a VR version of Power Simulator, which was getting like the updated maps and the DLC added to it, so you could play them in VR. But they've said here that there will be an end of support for Power Wash Simulator VR now, and that the VR team will be redeployed to other projects within the company. Because they said it just financially doesn't make sense to keep supporting the VR version of Power Wash Simulator.
I think the problem with VR is like it was already kind of niche, and then like with financial problems, it's like you kind of have to like really be frugal with like your resources, right?
Yeah, it's
It
moved
kind of
up.
sucks though for these very different experiences and
Peter Molydeux tweet.
But
The industry is moving towards smaller games. That is why my next game will be set entirely inside an elevator. So yeah, Peter Molydeux tweet of the week.
I feel like you could do something with that though.
Yeah, a game that's, I mean, the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. I mean,
Well,
look no further.
could you imagine like maybe not exactly elevators, but you know like on skyscrapers like the window washing I guess external elevator. You could do something like that.
Oh, you mean like almost like a cherry forklift or whatever they're called?
Well, yeah, but it's like on rails, well, not rails, but on like wire that's like linked to the top of the skyscraper and then goes all the way up and down.
Yeah, I don't know what they're called. Skyscraper.
I think you can tell
Glass
some really
wash
funny
lift.
things. Like you can just like all you can see is like people doing office work, but and there's like different offices,
Well,
like
you gotta
different
end,
companies at
Tony,
different
because I'm gonna
levels.
fucking die. And
I'm sorry.
everything in between podcast on YouTube. If you want to watch VODs, twitch.tv/score, and if you want to watch live, and shows.cast.com/everything in between podcast if you want us to do the audio version. I will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.